up, you sleepyheads, get up, get up, get out of bed, cheer up, the sun is red, live, love, laugh and be happy.
Hello and welcome to the Robin Pod Weekly, and it's the last one of the season. Can you believe it? Which of course were powered by Budget Tyres Auto Centre, the only car specialist trusted by the players, club officials and supporters of Hull Kingston Rovers. And before we bring in James and Steve, I just want to say a huge thank you to everybody who's tuned in on the podcast, the people who watch on YouTube, the people who watch it live. Honestly, you know, this is just a hobby. I love just talking about Hull Kingston Rovers. I enjoy giving people the opportunity to speak about Hull Kingston Rovers, and I also enjoy getting people's opinion, opposition supporters, journalists, former players. It's just great to be talking about Hull Kingston Rovers. So honestly, a huge thank you to everybody who's tuned in, who's listened, especially to the people who actually contributed and been part of the Robin Pod this season. Honestly, it's been huge. This is the 37th episode this season. We're nearly on 100,000 listens since we started doing it. We're way back, me and Joe. And Joe, of course, has been on this season. So it's, we never thought we'd get this far. And of course, it's been really interesting to see how the Robins have gone since we started doing it, because we did it in lockdown when there was not much else to do. And then the rise of the Robins has been absolutely tremendous. So it's great to be part of the journey. And like I said, huge thank you to everybody who's contributed. James, Steve, thank you for coming on this week's Robin Pod Weekly. I reflected on this week's Robin Pod before I started, and I don't know what you guys feel, but I'm just a little bit weary now. I'm glad for a little bit of downtime and a bit of international rugby league, and just because it's been, Steve, I'll start with you. It's been a long season, hasn't it?
It has. An eventful season, a good long season, but like you, you get rugby leagued out, because not only am I watching Rovers, but I tend to watch every rugby league match that's on Sky on TV. And there came a point towards the end of the season when I thought, let's get the season over and done with. But it's been a good season, so we can't complain at that. But I think not just us, but of course all the players need a rest as well.
Yeah, we're going to come on to, we've got, originally this was going to be just a sort of season mop-up, a season review, a look back on what's gone before. Of course, today, if you're listening to this tomorrow or Friday, today we have the IMG gradings release. The Robins are A grade, which of course we sort of suspected there would be, because there's been so many fantastic things going on behind the scenes and on the field as well. We've also had the news that Brett Delaney's departing the Robins, so we'll discuss that. We've also, of course, got Keith's Corner. It's a 10-minute one, so I'm just warning you. If you want to do something, it's 10 minutes. We've got Robins Remembered, Mike Fletcher, and we've got some other sad news to sort of put into there. So it's going to be another bumper edition of the Robin Pod Weekly. Let's start off, James, way back at the start of the season, if you can remember that far. We had pre-season friendlies against the Sheffield Eagles and Leeds Rhinos. We beat the Eagles. Obviously, that was very much a youthful side. We started to see what the side might look like when we played Leeds Rhinos away at Headingley. And then we came, of course, to the first game of the season against that lot. Across the other side of the river. Now, James, I'll tell you what, can you remember the lineup for that game?
Oh, God, I can't, but I remember now Hickey was fullback.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to read out the lineup, because it was Pet Hickey at fullback, Niall Evans on the wing, Tom Opperchick at centre, Oliver Gilder at centre, Ryan Hall, winger, Michael Lewis and Tyrone May were in the halves. Dean Hadley starting prop, Jez Litton starting hooker, Jai Whitbread the other prop, and then we had Tanganoa and Batchelor in the second row. Elite Mincello, of course, that was forward. And the bench was 𝗪𝗪𝗀𝗀, George King, 𝗪𝗂𝗧𝗧, and 𝗪𝗂�υ𝗂𝗧. 18th man, Corey Hall. Remember him? Do you cast your mind back to that game, James? There was a lot of nervousness, wasn't there? Of course, a derby game. You know, you never want to start the season off with that, but scoreline probably doesn't reflect how dominant we was in that game. James?
Yeah, so I lost you then.
Don't worry, you're not the only one, mate. It's been going on for all 37 episodes.
I think whenever you go into a derby game, I think you always do feel that air of trepidation, no matter where we are in the league. But it's just interesting going back to the team that you read out. Actually, how similar it was at the end of the season. And I think that's sort of probably been a factor why we've had the sort of season that we have. But going back to that game, I think there always is that trepidation. I think obviously the last game of the previous season we'd gone to Wigan and got hammered in the playoff semi-final, but we could see the direction the club were going and the team was going. We brought some decent players in the likes of Whitbread and Tangano and May and Evelds and Hicko, and you're thinking, okay, there's a lot of changes going on there. Hopefully they're going to gel fairly quickly, because they're going to need to really get a strong start to set the season off well. But overall, I think became fairly clear early into that game that we didn't have anything to fear, and that we're going to win it easily, and we did.
Yes, Steve. I mean, when you look at the players who departed and the players who arrived prior to that game, Kane Lynette obviously was going back to Australia, Sean Kane-Dowell retiring, Ethan Ryan, Louis Johnson, Reece Kennedy, Jordan Abdul, bringing in then Tyrone May, Cleppy Tanganoa, Jai Whitbread, Oliver Gildart, Joe Burgess, Per Hickou, Niall Evelds. I mean, there was quite a big changeover, and I think one of the most significant bits of business that we did do in that pre-season was bringing Danny Ward in as well as assistant coach. There's a big turnover in the players, and I suppose the club, 𝗬𝗂𝗀𝗀𝗧, has been sort of vindicated, because when you look at them players who've departed at the start of the season, and players who've come in, they've been vindicated, haven't they, in that recruitment? Because the players who've come in have done, I dare say, and a better job. I don't want to say a better job, because that sounds wrong to Sean Kane-Dowell and Kane Lynette, were great servants. But the recruitment was right, wasn't it?
Yeah, overall, I felt we were stronger.
Yeah.
I include Tyrone May in that. Not a lot of people, it took some time to gel with a lot of fans. But looking at that side, I think there's two that were in that side that are no longer with us, that haven't been with us most of the season, and that's Aidan and George King. But overall, it looked to me a stronger, probably more well-balanced team. And the fact, we look at the scoreline there, 22-0. I think I wasn't bothered that Hickou missed a couple of goals. Now, I wasn't bothered we'd only scored 22. It was the 0 that I liked, because it showed that defensively, even though it was only them that we were playing, as things turned out, but defensively we were strong. And to start the season with no points against us, that was the key thing for me. We all obviously saw in that match, we all got worried about Hickou because it wasn't his finest hour. But, that was soon sorted out. But that match in itself, and looking at that team, it gave me great hope for the future.
Yeah, James, I'm pleased to say, after that game, Per Hickou never took a conversion again this season. Look, I think credit to 𝗬𝗂𝗀𝗀𝗧. Obviously, they set the stall out for what they wanted to do. Whatever conversation they've had, they gave assurances to Hickou that he'd be the full-back. I think Hickou wanted it. The goal kicking, to be fair, he was sort of thrust into a situation where we had really nowhere to go, didn't we? Because we all expected Jordan Abdul to be starting come the start of the season. And whatever's gone on there left us with a gaping hole to fill in terms of who's going to kick. And Hiku stepped up. Subsequently, Michael Lewis. And I dare say that he's done a decent job. You know, he's nailed some absolute bangers and he's missed some ones that you go, how have you missed that? You know, you want to have to the grand final, millimetres another way, and he misses that conversion. So that's the fine margins. But credit to 𝘬𝗂𝗧𝗏, he quickly remedied the situation. But it was a situation that sort of got thrust upon him by Jordan Abdul's, I don't know, decision to move on and go to Catalan.
The thing, let me just go on about the goal kicking because I'm going to look at the whole season. We missed 43 conversions during the season.
Oh, you don't need to remind me, Steve. It's crazy.
You know,
it's bonkers, isn't it?
But that's 86 points, which would have made us the top point scorers. And I've got to say it was key, but no doubt we'll come on to that looking at the future because we're going to have a goal kicker in the team. But Mikey did, you know, he surprised us at times. You, like you say, he'd say, how the hell did you miss that? And then he'd put one over from the touchline, you know. But I think that, it showed that was our Achilles heel. If we had one during the season, that was our Achilles heel, and it showed up in the first match and caught us out a couple of times.
Yeah, and James, we didn't expect to see John, you know, departing, did we? We all expected to see him playing, but for me, James, come the end of the season, or well, not even the end of the season, a third of the way through, actually, I couldn't find a place for him to play anyway. No,
I agree, and I think even beginning of the season, you're thinking, you know, where's he going to slot in? Because you know, you bring Tyrone May, who was, you know, in 2023 was the top try assist in the whole of the Super League. So you're going to think, well, actually, him and Mikey together are going to be pretty potent. So where are you going to put Abdul? You know, would you play him at loose forward? No, because you've got Minchella there. Would you put on the bench? He's probably going to be wasted. He's wasted an interchange spot. So yeah, and it's, you know, it did come out the blue, and you know, totally unexpected. But as you said, when you look back at the season over the season and the season we haven't missed him, and I think the decision to allow him to go, and one of the things that I think went against Abdul was, you know, great play when he was on the pitch, but the amount of time he was on the pitch, it wasn't enough. And I think the lack of playing time he's had with Catalans, I think, has totally vindicated the decision to allow him to go. And we haven't looked back. Yeah, we missed his goal kicking, but you know, we got through because we just seemed to score tries for fun. So yeah. I tell you what, James, I'll stick with you because we followed that victory over that lot with another victory over Leeds at Sulbrook Craven Park, and then we suffered 2 defeats on the bounce, didn't we? We lost to Salford, and then we lost to Warrington, and that Warrington game, I mean, it's such a close game, wasn't it? What, if you can cast your mind back to that, what was your mood after that? Because we sort of 2 victories and then 2 defeats, and then what are you thinking? Like, is this going to be Rovers all over again, where we sort of flattered to deceive, or was you still confident that would get the run going and we would get more victories? Oh, it was a combination of both, to be honest. I think that Salford game, I think we went there with the expectation that it was a sort of, given the, I think, turmoil Salford had pre-season with sort of basically hardly having a squad to put together. We thought, you know, we should be going there, getting a win, and if the sort of place we need to go and win to sort of, if we're going to make a progress. But I think again, throughout the whole, when you look at how the season's gone, you got to give Salford a lot of credit. I think they showed that night what a gritty and determined team they were, and just basically, you know, played well to each other. You had a very solid defense. They had Mike Sneed, you know, kicking everybody to death. You know, it was a horrible night. You know, pouring down all night. It took us 3.5 hours to get there. It was, you know, horrible night. And I think, yeah, glad to get out. But I think the Warrington one was a really frustrating one because we were on top for most of that game. And I think throughout the whole season, we look back on that, I was thinking that was one of the ones that got away. We should have won it. We were in so much control in that game that we just should have won it, and we didn't. And you're thinking, are we going to be in a position where we're going to be able to close games down, or we're going to lose these close games again going forward? So it did bring a bit of angst, but you have to balance it with thinking, as I said, we've had a lot of turnover of players coming in. It does take time for them to gel, and you know, so let's trust the process. Just trust what, you know, the coaching staff are doing and the players are doing in training, and it will come. I think there's enough in both of those games to sort of, probably more in the Warrington game than the Salford game, because that was, you know, that was just a poor performance overall. That to say, yeah, we can do this. You know, we've got some positivity that can come out of this once we get gelling together.
Yeah, crucially though, Steve, we followed up that defeat with a victory over Huddersfield away, which has never been a happy hunting ground for the Robins, has it, for a good number of years. But then we had 4 home games in a row, which included 2 Challenge Cup ties, and I do think then that run of games really helped us. And of course, Steve, during that spell, we'd signed 𝘂𝗲𝗄𝗏, and he's you know, we've seen what he's done this season. He's become such a crucial player for the Robins.
Yeah. Just looking at the Salford Warrington, it was a similar start to the season before, you know, because if you remember, we got beat by Leigh in the last minute, and I think we got beat by Salford we got beat by Warrington as well. So it was a similar start, but then, yeah, the Huddersfield game was fantastic, really, because we never looked like losing that game. And like you say, we've gone to that stadium in the past, and we've seen some horrific times. So that performance against Huddersfield augured well for the future, and we followed it up, like you say, with the games that followed. The 2 cup ties were interesting because wasn't Salford one of them?
Yeah.
Yes, it was.
Yeah. And we absolutely stuffed them 40-0, didn't we? You know, and so, you know, that just proved that we were on the upward spiral again. And I think, again, when you look at that, it was the nil that took the eye. Great defence again, and we were starting to build that defence, and no one wanted to come and face us at Craven Park after that. I think we lost 1 game at Craven Park after losing to Warrington. I think it was Catalans at 1 point, wasn't it? But yeah, things were starting to look rosy.
Yeah, and then, James, we played Catalan away, and then we played Wigan Warriors in a Challenge Cup semi-final, and that's where, you know, I remember at the time I was sort of trying to think, where are we? Because we've done so well, and you know, Catalan away is a different beast for us for whatever reason. I don't know why. I can't put my finger on it. It's just a different beast, isn't it? But the Challenge Cup semi-final, you know, I'll guarantee every Rovers fan genuinely thought we've got a fantastic opportunity to beat Wigan, because Wigan weren't great at that stage of the season as well. Don't forget, they'd had some injuries. They hadn't been firing all, and then they absolutely blew us away. And that's where I felt so early on in the season, and this is, just felt so deflated, because you was walking away from that going, maybe we're not that good. We're not that good. And it was such a chastising defeat. But credit to the Robins, because they did rally round and they quickly put them 2 defeats to bed. Because I think that's where 𝘀𝗧𝗏 deserves a huge amount of credit for what he's done with his side, because they never got too high, they never got too low. Massive defeats, and it probably, I mean, I dare say, when you look back, energised them. I don't know, but they were 2 bad defeats, and the supporters, I don't know. What did you feel at the time, James?
I just thought, yeah, here we go again. I think, you know, for whatever, like I said, for whatever reason, we go to Catalan. We're just, we're very rare exceptions. We just seem to struggle there. We seem to struggle there more than other teams do. And having then, as we lost later in the season on golden points, and they do seem to become a bit of a bogey team for us, and taking over from Huddersfield that sort of mantle as our bogey team. We just didn't compete, did we, in Catalan? And then, like I said, the Challenge Cup semi-final. I think I thought we went there with a lot of positivity. I think, I think particularly after the hammering we'd got in the playoff semi-final, I think it was thinking, okay, we've got a chance for revenge here. And they said, just for whatever reason, we just didn't turn up, and it just couldn't put my finger on it. It's just like one of those things. You're thinking, it's just, here we go again, and frustrating. But like you said, full credit to the squad and the team for digging out the hole, and sort of basically from that moment on, going on, an upward trajectory through the rest of the season.
Yeah, I think what makes it worse, Steve, is I've been corrected, but obviously prior to that semi-final, we beat Wigan at home and St Helens at home. Not only had we beat them, we'd beaten them well.
That was the frustration, especially in particular the St Helens thing. The St Helens victory was outstanding, but the seeds were there. We just had a couple of hiccups, a couple of barren spells, but I could see the seeds there with those victories over Wigan and St Helens. Disappointed we didn't get to Wembley, but in a way, it didn't do us any real harm apart from missing a big day out down there, because I think we needed the rest that we got during that cup final weekend. We weren't playing, and if you remember last year, we played just about every game there was to play. Almost did that this year again, but that break, both, I think there was an international break around that time as well. Those two breaks just set us up nicely for what was to come.
I was just looking at the lineup for that victory over St Helens. That mammoth victory. 𝗫𝗏𝗄𝗏 at fullback, Joe Burgess on the wing, Pettihiku centre, Oliver Gildart centre, Ryan Hall wing, Tyrone May, Mikey Lewis, and then you got 𝘬𝗓𝗂 prop, Jez Litton hooker, Jai Whitbread hooker, second row Dean Hadley, James Batchelor, loose forward Elliot Minchella, Matty Parcell on the interchange bench with Sam Luckley, Staunton, Tanganoa. And then when you go to the grand final, we're not that far away from that side. So what's been great, James, over this course of the season, and this is where the Robins now, whether they've got, I don't know, a secret formula or whatever, their conditioning this season, the off-field stuff, what they're doing with the players, has been absolutely fantastic. They've been, for me, apart from Wigan, the forerunners for getting the players out on the pitch when it counts, and that's where your investment goes off the field as well, isn't it? That's where you invest, because for Rovers to have their star players out on the pitch for as long as they have this season is just fantastic, and that's ultimately, I think, James, why we got to the grand final, because we had our best players out on the pitch for the majority of the season.
Yeah, we did, and I think it's been great to see. In the previous season, we do seem to have suffered quite a few injuries. And I think this season, Batchelor was out for 6 weeks, and that was the longest one we had out. Yeah. But you're right in terms of the backroom conditioning, etc., and how that plays into it. And I think probably the perfect example is Dean Hadley. Dean, he's always been great when he's been on the pitch. And he's put his body on the line so many times. When we played with a mask on, etc., to sort of get on the pitch. But this season has been absolutely phenomenal. He's had gone through unblemished. And he's just highlighted what a quality player is and how really important he is to the squad. and you got to give credit to the backroom staff for helping him get there.
Yeah, and the investment as well, of course, from the board of directors and Neil Udgell, and to do that, because a coach can ask for whatever he wants, but someone's got to pay for it, and it's great that the club and the board have invested in what Willie Peters wants. So it's fantastic to see that, and for me, Steve, one of the I don't know. Not one of the most important results of the season, but I think one that was very significant was after the Wigan Warriors semi-final defeat in the Challenge Cup. We, of course, then went to London, put them to the sword, 64 points to 14. For me, though, the big result was the 12-0 at home against Leigh, where we really stood up in defence. And that's where I started to think this team can grind out a result. It's not all about free-flowing rugby league, actually. This team's got the ability to defend.
Yeah, and this is when people really started to believe. We're Rovers fans. We know what we've gone through in the past. And we've all, even last year, around the time of the Magic weekend, I think we lost 3 or 4 games on the trot. But there was no way we were going to lose 3 or 4 games on the trot. And this time, and Leigh would have come. Leigh came wanting to beat us because obviously he'd beaten us in the cup final the previous year, but hadn't had any success against us after that. And it was a key game. And did it finish 12-6? I think was that
12-0.
12-0. Yeah,
12-0.
12-0.
That was it. Yeah, another nil. So we scored. It was 6-0 at half time. We won 12-0. And again, that the point again that I made earlier, it was the 0, and Rovers fans, I think after that game, really did start to believe that something special was going on. Yeah,
but James, you would then predicted you'd have 2 following games where they decided by a drop goal, would you? 2 games in a row decided by a drop goal. We had the game against Castleford where Jez Litton slots one over, and then. For me, I know we talked about the Warrington game about being probably one of the decisive ones in terms of the league leader shield. For me, the next one, the Catalan game, was the one where we should have. Catalan were absolutely on their asses come the end of the game, and how they managed to slot the 1 point over. We had so many opportunities towards the last 10 minutes, and then even in Golden Point, for me, that's the game, James, where. For me, the league leader shield was lost, because I think that was the one where that was a Catalan side who were beaten, and we couldn't beat them, as daft as that sounds. I just remember that Golden Point. There was literally just not even Golden Point with 5 minutes to go. They had no energy whatsoever. They had nothing, and we just couldn't get through them.
No, you're right. I think I'd go back for me just before I go on to the Catalan game. Go back to the Castleford game. I think for me that was probably one of the best away wins we had. I mean, the game itself was awful. It was one of those games where whatever we did, we just couldn't. Nothing was coming off, but we ended up winning it. And I think we always say that the sign of a good team is you can sort of grind out a win when you're not playing very well. And that night we were awful. And I think Cass had come off the back of playing. Didn't they play Wigan? Sort of just run Wigan close the week before or something like that at the Brick Stadium. So they're on a run. I think they played beaten Saints as well, haven't they? Something like that. They put a couple of good results together. So we for whatever reason it wasn't happening, but we managed to win it, and thought that set us up. But then, like I say, that Catalan game, like I say, you look back on it thinking, that was a league leader shield. But you got to give credit as well in the game, because we're 14-0 down at half time. We're playing into that wind, and then turned around, pulled it back to 14-all. But like I said, how we didn't manage to win it after that, I just do not know.
We couldn't even blame it on goal kicks, because we kicked the same that we did convert on tries.
It's funny because I look back at that series of fixtures, because then after the Catalan game, we then went to that lot's place and we beat them 24-10. We then went to Leeds and won 20 points to 12. But the results were sort of, Steve, like I don't know, we grinded them out. They weren't great performances, was there?
No.
There's no way we weren't playing necessarily great rugby league, but at that stage, apart from the Catalan game, of course, we was managing just to get over the line. We was able to do just enough to get through, and I think that's where the belief starts coming from. Going, God, this is a Rovers team who were playing not necessarily the greatest rugby league, but we're winning. Normally, then results would be the flip side. And that's where the energy started to come from, I think, Steve.
Yeah. I remember sitting with you after the Castleford game, and we were getting more and more frustrated, weren't we? Yeah, you're right.
I'll tell you what, Steve, just before you carry on, I sat in every stand and stood in every stand in Castleford that day because I was with my lad Finlay. He wanted to run the terracing, we sat in the seats, went at the Castleford end, we ended up in the bloody main stand.
Yeah, but that was because you wanted to be on the telly. I remember.
Well,
I thought
I think he wanted to.
I think he did. Replay that, and I thought, bloody hell, he was sat with me after the game. What's he doing over there?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what. I mean, we're going to talk about IMG ratings later on, but bloody hell, their main stand, it's wooden seats. It's Anyway, carry on, Steve.
I've lost the plot now.
So did I when I was walking around every stand in Castleford.
Yeah. I'll tell you one team. The victory over Leeds was good because if you look at the 3 games we played Leeds 3 times last year, and they gave us the hardest games that we had, I believe. They were all kind of confirmed late on, weren't they, the victories? I think the one at Headingley was when Jez Litton had been kind of replaced, usurped by 𝗪𝗂𝗧 for the starting 13, and we brought Jez Litton on, I think, with about 15 minutes to go. I know it was pretty late in the game, and he confirmed our victory by scoring a try in that match. And again, you talk about the coach, 𝗬𝗂𝗀𝗧, the fact that he could see that things had changed in the hooking position, in the dummy half position, in that 𝗪𝗂𝗧 had started to look better by being on from the off. And it must have taken Jez Litton aback a little bit to find that he was being used off the bench instead of 𝗪𝗂𝗧. But that was something that might have just not changed the season for us, but it gave us a new dynamic towards the back end of the season, I feel. Full remarks to 𝗬𝗂𝗀𝗧 for doing that. He needs the plaudits for that. Yeah,
I mean, James, Steve mentioned that victory over Leeds at Headingley, which is, of course, so important. We followed that up with a big victory over London, 40 points to 16 at Craven Park. I mean, James, we played London twice at home, and I do genuinely think the scorelines don't reflect how good London played in them fixtures. I think London were great credit to themselves and to the competition. Obviously, the scorelines, are what they are, but I genuinely think they really contributed to them games and did so well. And then the big question wasn't it? We looked at the fixtures ahead of us, and the big question was, can we go down the M62 to the northwest? Can we get them victories against teams where traditionally we're having struggled so poorly in the past, and then we went and beat Warrington? And I think that's when people then started going, following on from what we said about, the other games, that's when people went, wow, maybe we can.
Yeah. Yeah, it was. That night was just getting a big monkey off our backs. Do
you think it was like a pressure relief?
I think it was. And I think it was. And I think Warrington, I think their expectation was that they're going to, they were going to win because they've beaten us twice already in the season. They knew we didn't struggle out away from home. But for me, that night was the season that sort of probably said, actually, yeah, we can go. You can go a long way in this competition. And the fact that the way we played that night, it was just a full 80-minute performance. We're in total control. I think was it 10-0 at half time. Total control. They scored. I think Matty Ashton got a try in after about 5 minutes into the second half, and you're thinking, all right, they're going to get the momentum. You know what Warrington are like. They're going to come and steamroller us back in, but we didn't let them. You know, we just got back at them, held them out, went up, and then ended up winning 22-4 in the end, and thoroughly deserved it. It was probably for me the most complete performance of the season, and probably the most, the one that really just triggered everything that followed on from that to that ultimately ended up at Old Trafford.
I remember looking at the fixture list, and you talk about the Northwest. We got Warrington, we'd got St Helens, we'd got Leigh, we'd got and also around that time we'd also got Catalans again, which was the Magic Weekend game. Yeah. And you looked and you're thinking, where are we going to get the points for to stay in the top four? In the past, we wouldn't have given ourselves a price to stay in the top four with those fixtures. But that Warrington game, like you say, it was the catalyst. It took the monkey off for the back. It's the only team that Willie Peters hadn't beaten since he came over, and it was that M62 journey for all the fans that was going to happen for about the next 7 weeks. And like you say, James, absolutely crucial.
Yeah. And then we follow that up with a huge victory over Castleford at home, absolutely dominated them. And then Magic Weekend, we faced a side that we've already mentioned on the Robin Pod earlier on, that we struggled to beat Catalan. And I know, James, you called the Warrington performance one of the best of the season. For me, the Catalan game at Ellen Road, that was when Rovers were just, for me, absolutely sublime. They just put Catalan to the sword. Not the best Catalan side, I don't think you can, but for me, over the course of the season, that was where there was a bit of trepidation in that fixture, Steve, because we all thought, oh, here we go, playing Catalan. It's all right beating Warrington, Castle, but can we follow that up? And the juggernaut just continued and that it actually got more momentum because we beat Catalan, and not only did we beat them, we absolutely battered them, if we're honest. Yeah.
Like you say, it wasn't the best Catalan team. They started to drop off in form after the beaten us in that 1 point earlier on. And but if we were ever going to beat them, it was at Magic Weekend, and we didn't just beat them. This again was another thing about Rovers. You look at the points difference at the end of the season, and I think it was those games. It was the games against Warrington, Catalan, the London games, where we gained those extra points in terms of the points difference. Because I was looking at some of the earlier games, and they weren't the wide open victories that I thought they were. But that helped our points difference. It gave us more and more belief in ourselves, and it was on the big stage, and that's where we needed to perform.
Yeah, and James, Rovers fans in dreamland at that point. We put 22 points past Warrington, 36 points past Castleford, 36 points past Catalan, and then we went to St Helens and put 42 points past them. We said about Catalan being weakened. St Helens, though, that was we know their injury record they've had this season, but nobody, I guarantee you, nobody would have predicted that scoreline, regardless of what St Helens team they put out.
No. Rovers can only play what's in front of them, but to even go, to go to somewhere like St Helens, whoever is wearing that red V, they've got pride in that shirt. They're at home, and to put 42 points on them was just phenomenal. I cannot remember the last time I actually saw Rovers winning St Helens. I've never seen them win at the new ground. I don't see them win at Mersey Road too often either. So, but no, it was just an unbelievable performance all round. And I think from the first minute when they're knocked on and we more or less scored from that first set, that die was set. And I think the crucial thing for me as well in that game was when Blake got sin binned. And I think in the past, Rovers have seemed to struggle to sort of take advantage of that man advantage. But we scored 2 tries that afternoon, and that just really showed you again the way that we were able to take advantage of opposition errors and being down a player and take full advantage of it. And I think 2 tries, I think, were both converted as well, weren't they? So it was just set the tone for the rest of the game and thoroughly deserved to win in 4-2-6.
Yeah, Steve would then follow that up with another big victory over Salford at Craven Park, which then teed us up for that game against Wigan, didn't it? Going for that league leaders shield, and we went toe to toe with them in that game. Yeah, Steve, and I said about being deflated after the Wigan Warriors Challenge Cup semi-final game. That was a hard one to take, let alone because I had to travel with James for the game. I was on the coach with him.
But you took the wide road back, didn't you? You took the seat.
Oh, no, that's well documented on the Robin Pod, the journey home. Yeah, so don't worry about that. But no, I mean,
you slept through it.
Yeah, well, yeah, part of it. Yeah. Well, I was acting more as a pillow for my lad, so he had somebody to sleep on. Yeah, but Steve, I mean, what a game. We came out on the wrong end of it. And I genuinely believe we had 30 men on the pitch for. If we had one sin bin, Steve, I genuinely think we'd have won it still, let alone 2. But
I think for me, Burgess wasn't a sin bin, not at all, not at all. The other one argument, you could. It's the way the rules went, and so we had to accept that. We had to grin and bear it. But the Burgess one. Nowhere near being a sin bin, a flop. Ridiculous. But it was what it was, and we came away. It's a bit funny. I came away from that game with the same feelings I came away from the grand final. We'd played a Wigan team that don't give up, and we'd done everything we could to win. I'd watched Mikey Lewis stand up Bevan French to score. We'd seen that great intercept, and that try still took some scoring, because Hickle was having to look for Burgess, and that could have gone wrong. How many times have we seen that where the centre goes through and the winger's clear and drops the ball? We had a decent lead, and for me, the 20 minutes where we were down to 12 men against a team that take advantage of those situations. Don't forget, they're clever at upping their game in those periods when a team's down to 12. And you look at the tries. You look at the Bevan French try where he dillied and he dallied and then he put the kick through. And sadly, I think. And this is no slight on Broadbent, but I think if Everwood had been the fullback, that gap might not have been there.
He just got himself slightly to the wrong side. Just only by probably a few inches, but he just got the wrong.
It was when French took the ball, he was running towards the touchline. He was putting himself in the position where he'd expect to put himself as Broadbent. And he suddenly realised he's going the other way. I better turn around, but there was a gap he could have put 2 buses through, wasn't there, for the kick to go through? So that, and we got beat. That was it. It was frustrating.
Yeah, James, though, great credit, and it's become a feature of the season under 𝗲𝗏𝗄𝗏, hasn't it, in 2024, is that when they've tasted defeat, they've got back on the horse, and a lot of supporters were fearful of that game against Leigh, because don't forget, Leigh had got the act together at that time. They'd got players back. Everyone was thinking we're going to go toe-to-toe, similar to the Wigan game before, and actually, Rovers just blew them out of the water. Defence was superior, attack was great, and that takes a lot of doing. doesn't it? To come on, and I think that's where ultimately, we didn't win the grand final. We didn't get, but being able to get back on the horse and forget about them defeats and keep going again. I think that's what really shone through to me. And we went to Lee, as supporters probably in hope, because we thought, what we're going to, we've all got Rovers of old now back of our minds going, what's going to come next? Well, I'll tell you what, they absolutely showed up that day.
They did, and you're right. From if you look at the games, Lee were the form team at the time. They're just, like I said, they'd got all the players back. They were looking unbeatable. And the fact that we could go there and nil them for the second time in the season, I think, and until they got beat by Wigan in the playoff semi-final, I think the only times Adrian Lamb coached League team have been nilled, both times by Rovers. It just showed you how far we've come in the defence. I thought we took our tries well in that opportunity in that first half. I think almost carbon copies from what, if I remember right, with Tyrone May batting the ball back, and then just going into falling into hands and scoring. And then that try, I think was it Jessie Sue after about 4 minutes at the start of the second half, more or less underneath the post in front of the Rovers fans. I thought, yeah, that's it. Game's sorted now. But Rovers of old, you'd think, still could still lose this, but they're a different gravy now defensively, and you just know that once that had that lead, they weren't going to let it go.
Yeah,
even now, I'm starting to feel confident.
I'll tell you what, and the Elton John tribute act was absolutely fantastic. That's probably one of my abiding memories of that game at least. So I doff my cap to him. Then Steve, of course, we followed that up with the game against Leeds. Leeds, they've flat to deceive, haven't they? They've been pretty much bag of shite all season. His game against Warrington, though, where for me, Steve, you could see what 𝘂𝗧𝗏𝗂𝗧 had been building towards. So if you look at that second half in terms of that defensive effort, that was pretty much from when you go from that back at that game against Hull FC, start of the season, to where we got to there. That is pretty much where we've been building towards in terms of that defensive effort in the second half, in terms of shutting Warrington out. It was a mammoth effort, absolutely. And do you know what, though, Steve? In that second half, as close as it was, with Matty Ashton getting the try, and I never doubted the Robins. I really believed that they was going to do it. I just had that feeling inside myself.
Yeah, going back to the Leeds game, we needed the 2 points to finish second, and we were knackered. We were really knackered in that game. That was had we not finished second, and we'd had to play the game, not got the weekend off, the following weekend. I'm not sure we'd have got to the grand final, because that Leeds game, the forwards had started to look knackered. They needed that weekend off, that free weekend, before they played Warrington, because that was as tough a game as you'll ever see. But I've got to agree, the last 10 minutes, I'm thinking they're not going to score against us. We're going to win this, and we're destined for the grand final. And that's how it proved. It was a courageous performance of the players there. Was it Hadley? What was Hadley's tackle count in that?
I think it was pushing 59,
wasn't it?
59, wasn't it?
Yeah.
59.
Phenomenal.
Yeah.
It was that tackle on the edge, wasn't it, where Mikey Lewis had come across to cover, and the bundle. I can't remember. Was it into touch?
Was it Thewlis?
Thewlis, yeah, and they celebrated that like they celebrated a try. Yeah, of course, teams do that sort of. I don't know, a little bit like it's like hollow. They do it hollow, like they don't mean it. Whereas that, I think, them guys genuinely thought we've shut them out, and testament to them for what they've done, but from what 𝘂𝗧𝗏𝗂𝗧, Brett Delaney, Dave Hodgson, Danny Ward, all that effort in training leads to them moments.
Yeah, there was the controversy, of course, the try that people say never was. Burgess, He didn't help himself in the post-match interview. But for me, that was a try because I went frame by frame on the telly. I do that sometimes. And the ball hit the ground about 9 inches from the line that you could see. The ball had hit the ground and it's about 9 inches from the line. So the momentum, if that ball's on the ground there, the momentum's going to carry it to the whitewash. You know, whatever you can't see after that, yeah, it comes up. But the momentum after it's hit the ground, the momentum that took him over, it took the ball over. So there was no argument about that for me. It was a try. And anyway, you know.
Well, the best thing that Joe Burgess could have done, Steve, is just gone, I'm not the referee.
Yeah.
I just played the game, and it's up to someone else to decide whether it was a try or not. But he didn't.
Oh,
but obviously, he's quite extrovert sometimes, isn't he, in terms of what he does. So he's a character, isn't he? But what he does look like, and I tell you what, he looks happy at Kingston Rovers. He looks like he's enjoying his rugby league. I think he's got a great group of players with him. He's got his best mate, 𝘬𝗓𝗲𝗀 out there, and Willie Peters seems to be bringing out the best of him, because I do think this is one of Joe Burgess' best seasons. And don't forget, I mean, we got him on a bit of a whim, because he got released from Salford. He wasn't our starting winger come the start of the season.
No. And
it took him about 5 games to get into the team, didn't it? I think he made his debut at Salford, and then was out of the team for about 3 or 4 games after that.
I think that was an injury, wasn't it? Did he have a head knock or so? I can't remember. Can I just go back though? Because we get
not as far back as Keith Pollard.
We're getting to grand final time, but just one thing we haven't mentioned. One of the highlights of the season was the Huddersfield match and Ryan Hall breaking the record.
Well, Steve, you preempted what I was gonna come on to. So in terms of season highlights, go on, crack on.
Well, you know, it was fantastic because he missed out a couple of times just before and on try scoring, and you start to wonder it's a monkey on your back. But and then he equalled the record, and 2 minutes later he's broken the record. And whatever, you know, I'm not sure what Ryan Hall's position will be at Leeds next year, because they're looking at signing that Fijian winger, aren't they, as well? And they'll have Hadley, so Ryan might have to force his way into
I tell you what, Steve, I cannot get my head around, right? Ryan Hall has just played in a Super League Grand Final, right? He's one of the top meter makers in the whole game. He came up with probably the best tackle of the game. And Leeds fans or Leeds are going, well, there might be a backup player. You're like, he's crazy. He's still one of the best players in the game.
You can't understand why they're going, because they've been stung in the past with the South Sea Island, the 𝘬𝗂𝗀𝗀, you know. And this guy who they're looking at now from Parramatta, he might be good in attack 15 metres from the line, but Ryan Hall is. But will he have the defence and will he be willing to take the ball up from deep, from the kickoff, like Ryan Hall? So, but Ryan Hall, I've no doubt we'll mention the other players that are leaving us, but that game against Huddersfield, and the previous year against Huddersfield, didn't he go 75, 80 yards for a try and look absolutely knackered?
Yeah.
But that and the crowd, the atmosphere when he got that try, he tried to play it down and look blasé, but the players came running in, didn't they? And
well, I was going to say, James, I mean, Ryan Hall scored that try to break the record, but I think Rovers fans weren't celebrating the points on the board in terms of what it meant for the scoreline. They was genuinely celebrating the achievement of the player for what he's done. And what you would say is Ryan Hall, since he's not transformed the club, but he's been part of the transformation of the club, because his professionalism, and the fact, I think what brought it home to me was when he said he considers himself as much as a Robin as he does a Leeds Rhinos, as a Rhino. And that's what brought it home to me about how much the club means to him.
Yeah, it is. I think he's just been the ultimate professional. People. I think when we signed him, there's a lot of saying, "Oh, he's just coming here for one last payday." He's failed it in the NRL. He's just come for one last payday. But I don't think in any of the time he was at the club, you could say he didn't give 100%. It was just his whole demeanor and some of the post-match interviews he was sort of saying. I think there was one. It wasn't the one on the Sky interview he was doing after the close to the end of the season when he sort of said about they talk about going to the grand final. He said, "Well, I can't win it." Asking him if he's happy to get to the grand final, well, I can't win it. And that's the attitude you have, and I think it will have rubbed off on some of the on the rest of the squad. And as Steve said, it's just that try when he broke the record, it was probably the highlight of the season. I think it's quite funny because I think it just got on a run where he just couldn't seem to score, get the ball. The ball was going nowhere near him. I think at London they were trying the damnedest to get the ball towards him, and it just wasn't happening. He got the ball, he had a chance, and he dropped it. He's thinking it's never going to happen. And then I think when he got that try, and you could just see the gap open up like the part in the Red Sea. And he just went through, and I think the roof was going to come off the East Stand at that time when people just realised what it meant. And he's still going to be one of the top players, and still going to be sad to see him go. He's going to be big boots to fill, but it's been an absolute privilege to see him play at Rovers.
Yeah,
the thing that made me laugh right at the end, the interview where he said. He almost went to the other side. He went to Toronto, didn't he? And Toronto folded, and he was looking for a club. And both us and that mob over there were in for him. And he almost was. They made the better offer, apparently.
Yeah.
And it was Skids, Sean Kenny Dowell, that rang him up and said, "I'd love to play inside you." And that clinched it for him. So we got the better of the deal there, didn't we?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Steve, here we go. We go to the grand final, don't we? I mean, Steve, you've been watching the Robins a lot longer than I have. You've seen Rovers in so many finals, Premiership finals, Challenge Cup finals, massive games. For a lot of Robin supporters, it's the first time that they've had the opportunity to see him in such a game, and what a game, because it was toe-to-toe. A bit of magic was the difference. And you know what? As daft as this sounds, it was refreshing to go to a game. Yes, we got beat, and I'm pissed off we got beat. But you walked away going, the better team just won. They didn't win dirty. They didn't cheat. The better team just won, and that was the game.
They strangled us. Apart from Mikey crossing when Tyrone May tipped down. If you remember from that moment on, there were two soldiers around the wing taking the ball for Wigan. Every time we put a kick up, it was like two defensemen in American football. They got around the catcher, didn't they? And the little things that matter. The Wigan hooker, I've forgotten his name. Leeming. Every time Mikey went to kick, Leeming was on him within no time from dummy half. It wasn't anybody coming from the line. It was Leeming. As soon as that fifth tackle was made, you knew the ball was going, he'd be dummy half and he'd head towards Mikey. That was a plan by Wigan. Shut Mikey down as much as possible. And then, like I say, they strangled us. If we put a kick up, there were two men around the catcher all the time. And it was just one of those games where it was I won't say it was inexperienced, but Wigan were the cleverer team in defence. But we only conceded one try in defence. I think we were a bit lucky to get away with the Marshall disallowed try. But when the centre went through, Ryan almost covered 75 yards to make that tackle, to force him to lose the ball. we did nothing. We really did nothing wrong. We were beaten by the better team, like you say, Chris. And you come away and people have said to me, "Oh, the grand final, how do you feel?" I said, "Look, we got beat by the better team, and it was as simple as that. There can be no arguments." And I know this. I've got a friend whose wife, who live in Wigan, and his wife goes to yoga, and Matty Peake goes to the same yoga class, and she saw him after the final, and said, "Well done. What did you think?" Mentioned me as an 𝗀𝗂𝗃𝗏 fan. He says, "I'm 𝗀𝗂𝗃𝗏𝗏 out," and he's gone on holiday for 3 weeks to Vietnam to recover. And that was his quote to her. "I'm 𝗀𝗂𝗃𝗏𝗏 out." So he knows we've done it. We've given them some games this season.
Yeah. The only
thing that's the tribute. That's the tribute, isn't it? If the coach of a team that's won 4 tournaments or 4 cups can turn around and say that, we haven't done better with.
Right, I'll tell you what, Steve, as well, the mark on the man. Don't forget he put a supporting letter as well for 𝗪𝗂𝗀𝗏 in terms of his appeal for his ban, which obviously was then rescinded, which is why he's playing for New Zealand this weekend now because of that ban being overturned. So, the mark of the man is I think Mike Peake's just a class act, isn't he? He lets his rugby league do the talking. He never gets sort of caught up in any controversy. James, a little bit. The only slight tinge of disappointment from the grand final is that for me, I think we could still be playing now, and they didn't look like scoring. Apart from that Mikey Lewis effort, they had the pass out wide where Ryan Hall got sort of bundled into touch. We went strong down the middle, and great full credit to Sue, Whitbread, Hadley. When I think Tanganoa made a big impact when he came on. He looked like he could possibly break the line, but we just seemed to be just playing sort of in front of Wigan. We didn't really sort of, I don't know. Like I said, I don't think we could. If we was playing now, I don't think we'd have scored. We just didn't seem to come up with them special players that we have come up with during the season.
No, and I think you've got to give credit to Wigan for their defence. I think we had as many chances as Wigan let us have. So. Like Steve said, I came away from that obviously disappointed we'd lost, but just thinking, we'd lost essentially, basically to a piece of magic, from a guy who could just do that to any team. Look what he did to Lee in the semi-final, and it was ironic that before he scored that try, that first 20 minutes or so, I think we were the better team. Yeah. We had them on the rack. I think in that first 20 minutes or so. They couldn't get out of their own half. The defense was strong. We were strangling them and doing. And it was that last tackle turnover, just about 5 yards from their line, that ultimately ended up with French scoring. I think that was again for me one of the other disappointments, that a lot of our last tackle options there wasn't really any plan there, and we just seemed to panic in and sort of no really thought about what we're going to do. There's nothing to put a little, kick through or try and get a repeat set. I think we tried it, I think we've got one repeat set, but I think we got caught in possession about four or five times on that last tackle. Yeah, so that for me, that was disappointing. And just thinking, what might have been if we'd have, done, created something, got a repeat set, etc. But no, can't fault the effort. Came away thinking, we've gone toe to toe with a team that hammered us early in the season, Challenge Cup semi-final. We've beaten them, and I think gives you confidence that hopefully next year we're going to be up there again and challenging Wigan, and they're going to thinking the teams that are going to challenge us, 𝗀𝗂𝗃𝗏, Warrington, they're the ones that are going to be up there against the ones that we need to be playing our A game against.
Yeah, Steve, grand final defeat. What was your highlight of the season?
Oh, I think the St Helens victory at home was pretty good. The fact that we went at that, I think it was 4 games where we didn't concede points. And I think the Ryan Hall. And the move of the season for me was that sublime pass where I think it was against St Helens at home where 𝗕𝗂𝗋𝗏 just put that sublime black backflip to 9 levels and went over and scored. I think that try was so good. But we've the season's been a highlight. You know, it's been a. You talk about me 1961 first match. This season will go down as one of my top 3 seasons, I think.
Wow.
Yeah, I think that this season will go down as one of my top 3. When obviously the season when we won the cup, the season when we won the championship, the 86 season, 85 season, sorry, and this one, and I believe that the team we've got now, while I believe that a lot of the Rovers players from 85, a few of them would get into the team now because of the style of rugby that they played. I think this is probably one of our best teams of all time.
Yeah. Well, that's got to be cemented, do you think, though, Steve, by silverware?
I can remember you, Chris, asking us early in the season what would be a good season. And I think we said, we've got to finish higher than 4th and possibly silverware. Well, we finished higher than 4th, we finished 2nd. So to improve on it, we've got to get silverware next year to show an improvement. Whether we will or not is another matter because a lot of teams have strengthened. But yeah, it's sad we haven't got silverware, and no doubt other people will be reminding us of that. But nobody, we were the only team that could match Wigan as far as I'm concerned. We were the only team that took it to Wigan. We beat Warrington, we took it to Wigan, we took it to Wigan before the grand final, and we took it to Wigan during the grand final. And you say we might not have scored. That was down to Wigan's defence as much as our attack. We talk about Ryan Hall getting bundled into touch. That happened twice. And how many players were on him when for all money, you'd think he'd scored a try. But suddenly he's surrounded by 4 Wigan players pushing him into touch. That's what it meant to them. And we did our share of tackling. Yeah, for the first 20 minutes we were on top. I think then the subs started coming in. We started using the replacements, and that possibly gave Wigan plus them scoring the try gave them the impetus again. But as far as I'm concerned, the whole season's been a highlight. And fingers crossed next season. I don't know that we will do it next season, but next season we need to be getting silverware, and I think our best way for that, it depends on the draw, but it's the Challenge Cup again.
James, same question to you.
Highlights for me, like Steve, the Ryan Hall breaking the record. That was, just one of those moments. I was, you were there type things. I think then also the Warrington away game in August, where I said earlier, we got that monkey off our backs and just set the scene for what happened throughout the rest of the season. And then even though it ended in defeat, the grand final, the fact, we went to the grand final in 2017, the year we got promoted. And we were sat there among some Leeds fans. We just announced that Danny Maguire was coming to the club, and some Leeds fans were saying, can you come? Can we keep him? And I said no. And we turned to each other and said, "Do you think we'll ever see Rovers here?" Bear in mind we just come out of the championship, and I've like Steve, I've seen the glory days of the 80s, etc. And I just thought, you know what, it'd be great if we did. And there we are, 7 years later at Old Trafford, watching Rovers in the grand final, and it just gives you that taste for it again. You just want those days again. Want those moments. And then looking ahead, I think we do need now to sort of use that as a springboard to next season to win something. You think about the last 4 seasons, 21, 22, 23, 24. We've shown we can consistently get to semi-finals. That doesn't seem to be a problem for us. We've got to 2 finals, which we've come away without anything in them, but it shows we can do it. And I think, given the trajectory the club's going and the type and the quality of the player they're bringing in, and I think probably hopefully the determination around the club to actually, continue that momentum. We need to be winning something next year. I agree with Steve. The best option for me is going to be the Challenge Cup. But if it's not the Challenge Cup, but it's the Grand Final or League Lady Shield, I'll happily take that.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. I'll finish on before we move on. My highlight of the season is just I just genuinely love going to Craven Park on a Friday night and just watching rugby. It's just great. The ground's buzzing. We've got 10,000 plus people there. The club have made such an effort to entertain people. Most importantly, 𝘀𝗧𝗏𝗏𝗧 has made an effort to make a team that we can all be proud of and enjoy watching. It's just it's a part of your week where you just look forward to, and we've not had that for a long time. A lot of times you go to Rovers and sort of you'd be faithful, you didn't know what was going to come, you'd be hoping to get a win. Now, it's just entertaining. You look forward to going to Craven Park, not just because you're seeing your friends, your family, whoever, or it's just something to do. It's I genuinely think it's entertaining, and that is
the IMG thing. We're going to talk about possibly later if this time. A mate of mine made a point today. He said, "You go 2 hours before now, and you're going to be entertained not just by what's coming on the pitch, but you're entertained by the atmosphere in Craven Street." And he did notice, he's noticed more than me, a lot of teenagers or just early 20s people, especially females, that come for a night out, and they're turning up at Craven Park, and they're making, they're getting a drink and they're getting whatever foods on offer, pizza or chicken or whatever, and it's become an experience that no other club can match, I don't think.
No, great credit to the people behind the scenes who have done that, and it's not an accident. They've sort of the plan for this. Yeah, they stumbled across, I think, Craven Street in a little bit and sort of experimented in what might happen. But it's not just Craven Street. West Stand's full. The corporate bit. People want to get in there early. People want to get in the East Stand. It's not just Craven. Craven Park isn't just Craven Street. It's the whole everything.
Yeah.
People just want to be there. So no, great credit. Right. That wraps up the season. We've gone over it and hopefully we've done justice to what the Robins have done. One thing though, Steve, that I will just finish on, as much as it's been such an enjoyable season, we've had some sadness as well. Of course, we had the departure of Phil Lowe, and then just before the grand final as well, the great Brian Lockwood. I mean, losing two players of that stature, their contribution to Hull Kingston Rovers, to rugby league in general. For me, it's a season where such highs, but tinged with sadness as well.
Yeah, Lowe, a legend. Brian Lockwood, a legend within the game, both here and in fact, both now. Struck his stuff in Australia as well. So, two grand people. And Lockwood will always go down as the man who won the Lance Todd Trophy. In fact, he never lost at Wembley, Brian Lockwood. He played 6 times. He won 5. And they had that one draw against that lot from across the way. So, that's some record at Wembley. He always seemed to be, because if you remember, well, you won't remember, but in 1980, after he'd played for us at Wembley and won the Lance Todd, he actually signed for Oldham after he left us. And I think it was in the January, Oldham, Widnes moved in for him from Oldham. He'd only played maybe half a dozen games for Oldham. And Widnes moved in for him, and he played against us at Wembley in 1981. So he represented us, and then he played against us. But yeah, a smashing fella. I used to live in Wakefield for a while, and I I used to frequent one of his pubs, and there was always a good lot of banter going on. In fact, I remember that same year that we won at Wembley, Brian Lockwood, I was in Lockwood's pub the night before we played Hull in the Floodlit Trophy final. And I said, you've got to beat this lot, you've got to beat this lot. He said, will you shut up? He says, you're making me nervous, you know. And in fact, Hull beat us that night. Yeah, it was a great ball handling forward. Very rarely got tackled, you know, with the ball. He always released it. You hardly saw him go to ground. You know, he was always stood up looking to release the ball. But Louis as well. Well, what can you say about Louis? Signed at 16, played against the Australians at 17, you know, and then went on to greatness, top scoring forward. And then he went over to Manly and did it over there, although he struggled at first, I think, at Manly. He struggled to get used to the training regime at Manly. But once he got used to it, and he actually scored the only try in the grand final that they won. So I think they won 13-10, and Louis scored the try. Bit of dispute when he came back. Rovers actually got thrown out of the competition for playing him because Manly had claimed they had a 2-year extension on Louis. He'd gone for 3 years, but they said they had a 2-year option. Rovers said he never. And he actually played a lot of games for Rovers that season and was picked for Great Britain and had to pull out because the Australians were complaining that he shouldn't have been playing for Rovers, and rather than cause any problems, he pulled out. And then we got to play Warrington in the Premiership first round, and Louis was picked, and Ken Archison, the Manly owner, he was the chief exec and what have you. He took a lawsuit out to stop Rovers playing him, but they played him, and Manly appealed to the rugby league, and Rovers were thrown out the Premiership for playing an ineligible player, and yet a few weeks earlier they picked him for Great Britain. So where is that ineligibility from? You know, the great player was Phil, and he did it. He came back and did it again. You know, sad time when people pass away.
Yeah, and of course, Scott Solway, who's been on the Robin Pod many times, he did a fantastic job heading up Phil Lowe's funeral. And Steve, Brian Lockwood's funeral is what, just a few days away?
Yeah, I think I'm not sure. I've seen the date, November the 7th, but it might it's around that time.
Yeah.
Can I just take time out now just to say we've lost another Robin as well in the Janice Oldstock, Roy Oldstock's wife, passed away last Sunday. She was David Hall's sister, and so red and white through and through. And so let's send our condolences to Roy and David, and think for a minute about Janice. She'd been ill for a while, and she passed away last Sunday. Sad times.
Yeah, and two families, of course, who were just red and white through and through, contributed to the club so much, not just as players, but the whole families as a whole, haven't they, Steve? You know, they are red and white through and through, and it's important to remember not just the players, because of course it's everyone behind them as well who allow them players to go on and do what they do. So, you know, when we talk about families and the Red Army and everything that people contribute, yeah, it's so important that we recognise these people, because, you know, we talk about Hull Kingston Rovers being a special club, and it's the families, isn't it? It's the relationships, it's the friendships, it's everything that makes us such a special club.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, of course. Right. Well, that leads me to Keith's Corner. Now, this goes on 10 minutes. Keith takes us back to the 1970s. And then, Steve, as soon as Keith's Corner's finished, we'll go into Robin's Remembered. Keith, welcome to the penultimate, well, not penultimate, the last Robin Pod Weekly of the season, and where we're going to pick up from where we left off last time.
Well, I'll call this one the Storming 70s. We're starting off season 69-70. It was the season that the Rugby Football League changed the substitute rule in once again, and clubs could now use 2 subs at any time for any reason, not just for injuries like they used to do. It was also the season that Cyril Williams, Rovers' long-serving secretary, retired, and Ron Turner coming in. There'd been 50 applicants for the job, but Ron took over the position and then he held it for another 33 years. The season started at a low ebb, with Rovers taking a good handing from the Black and Whites in a pre-season friendly. It was a time when, after taking a few pastings the previous season, Roger Millward said he would not play for the club again. It can't be hidden how Roger at the time criticised the forwards. Since Frank Foster had left, I think some of the clubs were getting a bit of their own back. But after talks with 𝘀𝗂𝗏𝗏, the chairman, Roger decided to stay, and he played on and played all but 7 games that season. They also beat Wigan away, which was the first time since 1929. That year, Roger, Flash and Phil Lowe were picked up to go on the British Lions tour of Australia. The following season, 1970, the purchase of Craven Park come about for £65,000, and they also took over the grounds. The Winchester Avenue ground was sold for just over £22,000, which offset the price that they paid for Craven Park. And also, after 13 seasons as coach, Colin Hutton took over the new role as general manager. Johnny Whiteley took over from him, with Arthur Bunting taking over the A-team coach from Bob Coverdale. When John took over the club, should I say, he had a bit of a difficult start because Roger was unsettled again and asked for a transfer. The board knocked him back, but subsequently, the next week, he put in for another one. But then 4 games later, he broke his leg and was out until February 1971. And it all settled down after that. It was the first time in 10 years that Hull FC had finished higher than Rovers. This was mainly because of the poor form and injuries that hit the club. One good point, though, on the 12th of February, Rovers stopped Wigan with a run of won 30 games. Rovers stopped and gave the 31st game with 9 local lads in the team. Notable debuts on that day were Steve Hartley, Dave Hall and John Millington, all going on to have a long career at the club. Milo once said it was tough to get into first team. No one could give you a ball while playing in the reserves. Everybody was fighting for the first team place. They kept the goal to themselves. One player once said he was a reserve for the A-team, and Halifax came short of players, so he was asked to turn out for them. And he got it by Milo. Milo gave him a right crack, got hard in. And he said to him, "What the hell are you doing, Joe? I thought it was a mate of yours." He said, "You was wearing the wrong shirt, mate." Anyway, we come to 71-72. A new knockout competition was born, the John Play Trophy. Leeds refused to play in it. The Rovers reached the final of the Yorkshire Cup, beating Castleford 11-7 at Wakefield's ground, with Ian Markham getting the Man of the Match trophy. Johnny Whiteley had left the club in mid-February after a different opinion about team selection. We actually told me this. He was told he could pick the team, which he did, but he was told after submitting the team, the directors had changed it. John said, "I'm not having that." He said, "Well, you said I could pick the team." He said, "Well, you have, but we've changed it." So he chucked it. On another occasion, John congratulated Cliff Wallace on his performance. The directors left him out the next week. John said, "I can't handle this." He was gutted, and when he had to tell Cliff he was being left out because his replacement was better than him. Things got worse when Whiteley resigned as JB coach because it was costing him money. There was an exchange of words with the club as they thought it was very prestigious to have the Great Britain coach as Rovers coach. But John said he couldn't carry on. He said, "I'd had enough." Arthur Bunting took over on a trial basis with Paul Daly taking over the A-team. Terry Close, Eric Palmer, Colin Cooper and Cliff Wallace all left the club at that end of that season. We come to 72-73. The Rugby Football League made more drastic changes, going from 4 tackles to 6, which had happened in Australia in 1971. Independent timekeepers were introduced due to the amount of time referees were adding on for extra time. Things haven't changed a lot, has it? Rovers finished in respectable 10th place out of 30, also reaching the John Player Trophy semi-final at home to Salford, winning 15-13. On a brighter note, Hull finished in the 25th position. Phil Lowe scored 26 tries that season to beat Andy Sandham's club record. And Joe Brown, who was signed from Hull FC, had only made 26 appearances in 2.5 years, was transfer listed at the ground he could not settle and stayed away from the club, as did Paul Rose for a short time. 1973-74 season marked the lowest point since the mid-1950s. The Rugby Football League introduced two-division structure that would remain in place for 20 years. Rovers' previous season's exploits secured a position in the top-ranking competition, but it turned out to be a long, hard season, which has been this year. The biggest embarrassment was an early defeat at Batley, 23-8 in the Yorkshire Cup. Coach Arthur Bunting said, "It was that bad. Not one Batley player would have got into Rovers' squad, yet they beat us." There was not many bright times during that season, but one home game against Leeds when Rovers had a memorable victory, coming out 11-10, but there was only 1,343 people at the game. Fact is that Hull City was at home to Liverpool in the FA Cup the same day. Phil Lowe joined Manley and in the then called ARL on a 3-season contract. Rovers received £15,000 on the understanding Phil would return to the club after another 2 years. Oh, and would pay Manley another £10,000 if they want to keep him. Phil returned in 2 years, not 3, much to the disappointment of Manley, as they had not agreed to let him leave. A long-serving Johnny Moore earned £3,000 for his benefit year that year and retired, taking the A-team coaching job, with Paul Daly leaving to hoping to find a club near his West Riding home. Colin Hilton joined the board of directors. Neil Fox, Clive Sullivan, Bernard Watson, Cliff Wallace rejoined the club, along with Jed Dunn, Kirkpatrick and Millington. They were joined by youngsters David Old, Steve Hartley and Roy Allstock, making their debuts look much better, along with Millwood and Rose back in contention. Things were looking good and were favourite promotion, but it didn't happen. Then in 74-75, the Rugby Football League devalued the drop goal to 1 point in domestic games. Rovers' quest for promotion started badly. With the three defeats in the first 7 games, things looked much better in the Yorkshire Cup, reaching the final, beating Wakefield 16-13. They won the next 8 games, but the run was broken, a terribly defeat the hands of Salford in the semi-final of the Floodbridge Trophy. It was a dreadful night for the bus brought down on their way to the Willows, with players running straight out onto the ground. Keith Fielding, the Salford's flying winger, scored 4 tries and Rovers went down 27-10. But 4 days later, they played Salford at Craven Park in the John Player Trophy and was beaten 25-17. After a season's break, the derby returned, with Rovers coming out victors at Craven Park on Boxing Day 1912, with both clubs fighting out a 10-0 draw at the Boulevard on New Year's Day. Rovers was winning 10-0 at one point, but surrendered the lead. 3 days later, the semi-final of the John Player Trophy, so Rovers go down to Widnes 16-14, with goal kicking being the difference. The usual dependable Neil Fox was off form that night, kicking only 1 conversion from 4 tries. But Widnes had scored the same number of tries as well. Rovers finished at their goal of promotion, winning 14 of the 20 cup ties, 13 of them against first division opposition. In addition, Rovers scored 221 tries and 1,001 points, with Neil Fox 333 points, equaling Cyril Kellett's season record of 145. Bob Smithers and Jed Dunn were in the squad that year. Jed scored 42 tries in 45 games. Yes, 45 games. I complain they're playing so much now, including 6 against Hunslet. Hall and Watson were the regular centres, and Mike Smith made his debut with Stevenson Hudson playing for the scrum half, which left Millwood at number 6. But both left to allow Millwood to move to scrum half, giving the dancer Steve Hartley a chance at number 6. Miller only missed 5 games at prop that season. Neil Fox then moved into the number 13 position. He shared with Paul Rose, Cliff Wallace or Joe Brown. Smithies and Flanagan, Wiley and Brown leaving the club at the end of the season. After returning to the black the previous season, the company lost £13,294. One reason given, having to pay out more winning bonuses. I must mention the increase of TV fees, prize money and advertising, which amounted to £22,000, including £4,000 from the gate receipts. Well, that's it. It wasn't too bad, not too long, and that's all it is, friends. Hope to see you now.
Hello.
Keith whipping the crowd into a frenzy once again. I tasked Keith with two things. One is to remember where he left off from, and the other one is to knock Keel over, because if he does, then obviously that's Keith's corner done for next season. So hopefully we'll be able to bring Keith next season. But all joking aside, Keith's got a great sense of humour. I'm so thankful for him being able to come on the rowing pod. And do you know what? Just shine a light on what's gone before us, because as we're talking about grand finals and Woody Peters and everything that's going on, it's important to remember where we came from, which is why, Steve, we're going to go into Robins Remembered. Who we got this week, Steve?
We've got Mike Fletcher. Did you see him play, Johno?
Oh, I had the pleasure of seeing him play at Bulford Park, at Craven Park. I seen him score a few points, but did he score that many?
He scored a few. Look at Wakefield. I was watching Wakefield the other night, and the fullback Jowett became the first person to score 500 points in a season. So I thought, I'll have a look. I'm pretty sure Mike Fletcher's got pretty close to that total. And in fact, Mike Fletcher scored 450 points in one season. Brilliant goal kicker. He was born in 1967. I think it makes him about, 50 odd. But he signed for Rovers in 1985 and made his debut against Widnes that year. And he played for Rovers for 13 years. Made 332 starts, 28 starts as substitute, and set many club records. In fact, I think it's 3. In 1989 to 90, he scored the 450 points in one season. 199 goals he kicked that year, and the rest came in tries. He scored the most career goals, 1,268, and the most career points for Rovers with 2,760 points. He scored 56 tries. Mike played for the Great Britain under-21 team twice against France, kicked 4 goals, and that was in 1988. And Humberside had a representative team against Papua New Guinea in 1991, and he played in that match as well. One of the highlights he had was playing at Wembley in 1997 when we played in that one and only Rugby League plate competition. And he scored.
They don't count, Steve. Apparently, them trophies don't count.
They don't count, but they existed. They existed. Don't tell him that, for God's sake.
Oh, no, I'm being facetious because I've got the count to me. I was there when I saw him lift the plate.
We're talking about other people, aren't we? But, they count for them if they won them as well. He got heritage number 839, and one, I'm almost 100% certain of this. One of his claims to fame is he scored the first try at Seoul Craven Park when we played Trafford Borough. And he was on the score sheet there. We beat him 48-6, and I think he kicked about 8 goals. But I believe, if memory serves me correct, he scored the first try on our ground.
James will know because he was there.
Yeah, I agree with Steve. He did. I just made a little note here to say he scored the opening try against Trafford down at the South Terrace, I think it was.
Yeah,
that's where we were stood.
Yeah, 8,000 there that day.
Yeah, 8,500, wasn't there?
When you think about that, the state of the ground that we had, and we had 8,000 in there that day. I think what's the capacity now? 11,000. So, and against a team like Trafford Borough, I looked at that Trafford Borough team and didn't recognise any of them. But Fletch, great goal kicker, could backheel them from anywhere. And yeah, I think his record for goals in one match was beaten by Colin Armstrong. He kicked 14 against Nottingham City when we played them in a Yorkshire Cup. I think it was a Yorkshire Cup preliminary game. We beat Nottingham 100 points to 6, and I don't think Fletch scored in that game. I think he played in it, but I don't think he scored in it because Colin Armstrong took the kicks and kicked 14. But Fletch was a great goal kicker, played centre and full back, and a lot of people remember him fondly. I think he works on the rigs now, and it's still to be seen in the 𝗲𝗂𝗏𝗏.
James, Hull Kingston Rovers are a Grade A Super League side. What do you make of the IMG ratings?
I think it's fantastic that we've gone up in our grading. Not our grading, we've actually gone up in the score within the grade. I think it just really, just congratulations to everybody involved at the club for getting us to that position where we're a Grade A club. Ranked 5th out of the whole of the clubs in the UK. Just shows that whether you agree with it or not, it just shows that it's important what happens off the field is what happens on the pitch. And as you said earlier, alluded to earlier, the Friday night at Craven Park, it's not just a match. It's not a game anymore. It's an event. It's it's where people want to go to and just enjoy the whole atmosphere. And I think that's sort of played into it and helps get them get the grading where they are. As I said, whether you agree with the gradings or not is another matter. For me, I'm a bit old school. I think your position to be based on how you do on the pitch.
Yeah, Steve, what I think for me, what's impressed me the most is how the club have embraced the need to do better and not rely on Neil Hudgell and not to rely on. So, the club was run okay. You go back to Mike Smith and all the work that he's done, and it was good, but we became too reliant on too few people. And what IMG, I think, has done is actually propel the club into a place where they can't rely on Neil Hudgell just to be the chairperson. They need to bring better people. And what they've done is by appointing Paul Sewell as the chair of the board and bringing in other investors in terms of the board of directors, not just investors, but people who have got skills, business skills, people who know how to run big businesses and have got a skill set, have got connections. And I agree with James, IMG. I think it generally is a good thing to come in, but I think Rovers have accepted it, but gone one step beyond. They've gone further and they've embraced it.
Keeping one step ahead of it as well, I think they looked at. I mean, if you looked at the provisional points, we've scored more than the provisional points, so we've jumped ahead there, and we've already got plans, whatever they are. They're not totally in the open yet, but the club are thinking 2 years ahead. Both in terms of recruitment. I think we're looking at 1996, 97 now to see where we could be. And they're looking ahead. And, IMG exists. You've got to accept that. And whereas other clubs have moaned about it, look, without IMG, I know this sounds crass, but we wouldn't have been sitting in seats at Castleford this season.
Yeah.
You know, they knew they had to put seats in. You know, a lot of little finicky things, but by and large, the people who will benefit are the supporters. But it's going to take 2 or 3 years' time. You know, they're not going to realise how much they're going to benefit until clubs take on board the recommendations or the instructions from IMG. I will say this though, if IMG didn't exist, we'd only have one team in Hull in Super League next season. I firmly believe that, because it's because of IMG that London got relegated, and it's because of IMG London knew they were going to get relegated, so they didn't spend any money on players on improving the team. And if they had have improved the team, I just wonder who might have been bottom of the league and got relegated this season. Yeah. You know,
them bastards at IMG, but the
you know,
yeah.
Just
no, I totally understand what you're saying, Steve. And James, I think the good thing for me, what stands out is, like said Steve, Rovers have embraced IMG, but for me, they took it to another level in terms of what they need to do. And some clubs have basically done enough to get the grading, but have not necessarily fully believed in it. They've just gone through the tick box exercise of what can we do, what are the quick wins, which is smart. Don't get me wrong, it's smart because it gets you where you are. But I do think Rovers have fully embraced it, and the supporters, I think we've benefited from the club taking on board what IMG are recommending, and then the club also going probably beyond that as well. I don't know. What do you think?
I agree, because I think you probably, like I say, you've probably got some clubs who probably have been resting on the laurels for a number of years, and you know, probably actually Castleford and Wakefield are probably really good examples of that. You know, would they have sort of done what they've done to the grounds if IMG wasn't hanging around? You look at both their grounds, and you know, they've done well to get a grade A, but you still look at their grounds and thinking, yeah, they are still like going back in the ages.
Well,
you know,
I'm sick of seeing Castleford's ground.
Oh, I know, yeah.
It being drawn up, the future.
Yeah, it's been going about 10 years. You know, it's been going about 10 years. So yeah, they have done stuff, and yeah, Castle put some seats in, and Wakefield have built a new stand. But fundamentally, the grounds still are back what they were like. You know, isn't Wakefield's the oldest ground in the rugby league? Yeah. And you know, Castleford's looks like is the oldest ground in the rugby league. You know, has been around as long. But I think we've got to realise as well that rugby league now is in the entertainment business. You know, whether we like it or not, you know, we're competing. We're competing with other things. You know, family days out, you know, cinema, all those sort of stuff. That, you know, particularly in the cost of living crisis, people haven't got a lot of money. They're going to be careful where they spend it. So if they're going to be spending, you know, 50, 60, 70, 80 quid on going out, they want to enjoy it. And I think that's what Rovers have done by embracing things like, you know, like Craven Street. You know, they're making it into an event where you're getting people down into the ground early, getting part of the atmosphere, building the atmosphere up, building the atmosphere on the pitch, you know, with the pre-match entertainment as well, and just, you know, giving people a reason to stay behind, not thinking, I've got to get away early because to beat the traffic. I can hang around at Craven Street for an hour after the game and let the traffic die down and just sort of chill out with my mates, etc. So from that point of view, I think it's, you know, it is good that it's forced clubs to sort of make a decision and look to, you know, how they're going to engage with essentially their customers, the fans. But as I said, you know, for me, there's still probably not enough emphasis given to what happens on the pitch. And I think also there's probably some areas for improvement around the gradings. I don't think there's anything still on youth development or, you know, having, women's teams and disability learning difficulty teams. So yeah, I think that's probably where the next step would need to come in, sort of making sure, like again, like Rovers have done, you know, we're having all those teams and the netball teams as well, just embracing, making it into community things. That's probably me going to be where the next step needs to go with it.
I think IMG need to improve their performance.
Yeah,
We've signed up with them for 12 years, and when you look at the catchment area, Rovers, places like Willoughby, Headon, Beverley, Amlerby don't come within the Rovers catchment area.
Half the North Sea does there.
Sorry?
Half the North Sea does there.
Well, no, because it's just the boundaries of Hull that they use. And it's like in London, they used, you know, London's London and London are known as London, and yet the only catchment area they gave them was Merton. Well, there's kids playing for London that came from Kent, that don't travel from Kent, that travel from all over the south. And so IMG have got to look at that and say, come on, let's give them a chance. I think IMG are currently taking money without doing very much. And I think if they don't book up their ideas, then the Rugby League would be perfectly free to just say to IMG, sorry, you know, we've got a deal with you, but you're not cutting your part of the deal either.
Yeah.
But
it's funny you mentioned Castleford, James, because earlier on last week I did a few alternative awards from the Robin Pod. One of them was Shock of the Season, which was buying a can of Somersby cider from Warrington for £6.20. What I failed to include in that was purchasing a ticket to go to Castleford for £30. That is their standard price, not just for away fans, for home supporters as well. And I speak to the guy who does the Come On You Forwards podcast, and and Castleford fans are happy about that as well. £30 to go to Castleford. Now I know it's a museum, but if you go to London and you go to some of them museums, it's free to get in. Let alone going up to a heritage one in Castleford. You know, like when I took Finlay, I said to him, enjoy this moment, because this is like a museum of rugby league from 100 years ago. So this is why it's a special occasion. But no, joking aside, but no, 30 quid for Castleford is crazy, isn't it? Like, you know, as much as people might like going there because it's an old ground, it's history, there's no way that they can justify it. And that is what's charged to home fans as well. Anyway, we digress. Sticking with you, James, Brett Delaney, sad to see him go?
Yeah, I am. Yeah, I think the difference he's made on the defence it's just been phenomenal. So yeah, I think it's going to be hard to replace. I think what is interesting is they've announced they're not going to replace him directly, and they're going to divvy out his responsibilities to SKD and Danny Ward and Dave Hodgson. So that's quite an interesting development. So yes, sad to see him go. Like I said, I think he's done a fantastic job in the defence, and you could really see the difference that he has brought. So it'll be interesting to see whether he sort of translates that into what happens at Castleford as well. So yeah, but no, good luck to him. You know, wish him well.
Yeah, and Steve, what you saw is he was, I mean, from the privileged position that I've had on a number of occasions, is that he was a really well-liked person. Yeah. The players liked him, the coaching staff liked him. He seemed to be just one of the lads. Obviously, he's had a huge influence in terms of defence, but I suppose Willie Peters has been quite a privileged position in terms of being able to have Dave Hodgson, Danny Ward, Brett Delaney, Sean Kenny-Dowell. You know, that's quite a big structure around him, isn't it?
Yeah, I think I always described him as one of our best ever signings, Brett Delaney. What do they call him? Frogger. I wouldn't want to call him Frogger to his face. But obviously his friendship with Danny Ward and the fact that Castleford have got an owner now that's got a few quid, so can offer a few quid more. and he lives in Leeds, so it's ideal for him. I will say though that Danny Ward's coaching philosophy is based on defence. So, whereas we're losing some, I think had year, if Brett Delaney had gone last year, we might have struggled. But we had him. He taught us a lot in last year in 2023. Of course, Danny Ward's come, so Danny Ward will have noticed, will have discussed things. So, whereas it will be a loss, there's no doubt about it, because he's one of the best in the game at the job he does. I think that loss could be not as bad as it might have been had it been at the end of last season.
Yeah, no doubt. And of course, it puts to bed the rumours that East Hull's favourite son, Lee Radford, is coming home. Of course, he's not, but I mean, he's got a very privileged position at Northampton Saints as defensive coach. And I mean, if anyone's coached defence in Rugby Union, they'll know it's quite an easy job anyway. So, yeah, we'll see. James, just before we finish, we've got the internationals to come. We've got question time that we're going to finish off with, but we've got the internationals with Mikey Lewis potentially playing for England. We've got 𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗧 playing for New Zealand. We saw last weekend Reece Martin playing for Papua New Guinea. So still a bit of interest in the rugby league season before it finally ends.
Yeah, it'd be interesting how it goes against Samoa. I think obviously we owe them one after the semi-final last in the World Cup. But yeah, but typically with rugby league and international, it just seems to be a bit of damp squib and just sort of tagged onto the back end of the season with no real thought. I think we've got 2 games against Samoa, haven't we? And that just seems neither here nor nothing. And it wasn't the third game, but one of the players was getting married, so they've sort of been the third game off. So yeah, I'll be watching it. I'm not going, but it's just something else to watch, isn't it? And I just hope England win. Hope Mikey Lewis gets another shot and does well, but important doesn't get injured.
Yeah, definitely. Let's finish with question time. And to be fair,
can I just
go on, Steve? Go on.
That we're going to. I think we end up talking about in the future, but there's one signing, one contract extension that I noticed, and I think it gives us an idea of how Rovers are thinking. PLT at Oldham, we've given him an extra year, so he's signed till 2026, and he's going to. It was the young player of the year for Division 1. And he's going to have another year on his back in the Championship, tougher league. And I think it shows where the thinking is going for when May leaves us. I think we might be looking at a player that's coming back totally different to how he left us when he went on loan to Oldham originally. I think that's one for next season, but I just thought I'd throw that one in.
Definitely. Right, let's finish with... Right, Steve, one for you. Is a try called a try as you get the opportunity to have a try at a conversion? That's from Carl Franklin.
That's exactly why it was called a try. That was it. Back in the Northern Union days, kicks were conversions of tries, and so you didn't get to take the conversion unless you crossed the line to enable you to try for a conversion. That was the thinking behind it all. Yeah. So yes. Yeah.
There we go. That's confirmed. James, right. There's not that many questions, so I've got one for you. Is Mickey McAlorum and Jez Litton an upgrade on 𝗪𝗂𝗧𝗏 and 𝗪𝗂𝗏𝗀. And that's discounting Leyland, don't get me wrong. But is that an upgrade?
Time will tell, won't it? I think so. I'll sit on the fence. I think it's an interesting one, bringing Mickey McIlroy in. He obviously got bags of experience, and I just wonder, he's obviously got a 1-year contract, and I just think it's probably more of a stopgap until to allow Bill Leyland to get up to match fitness. Obviously, being out for a full year, potentially you might see Leyland going out on loan for a part of the season just to sort of get that match fitness, and then coming back in, later on the season, sort of push Litton and McIlroy for a spot. I think one thing though, having bringing McIlroy in, and then going to be partnering up with 𝗂𝗽𝗲𝗄𝗏 Hargreaves, we ain't going to be short of any, shall we say, aggression up front, are we?
No, true. And Steve, go on.
Go on. Well, I just hope it doesn't cost us. That's all.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah.
The referees are going to be sharpening the knives, I think. But we'll see whatever will be. I'm looking forward to seeing Bill Leyland, actually. I think he's a kid with a lot of potential. So I do hope he does get a chance and grabs it. I think he might. He's an educated kid, knows what he's doing, and he knows what he wants. And after the disappointment of this season, where he's been out with that injury, I think he'll be really up for training, and his pre-season will dictate what happens to him.
Yeah, and Steve, I've got a question for you. Oliver Gildart.
Yeah. Is that the question?
Well, yeah, open-ended, I suppose, isn't it? Oliver Gildart, not been on the pitch for as long as we would have liked to have seen this season. Obviously, when he has played, he's had some magic moments this season. Would you like to see another centre? Is Jack Broadbent the centre, or would you like to have retained 𝗂𝗧𝗏𝗄𝗏? Or
I'm a fan of 𝗂𝗧𝗏𝗏𝗄𝗏. Defensively, I think he. I don't know what's happened to him. Has anybody come in for him? I don't think they have.
No one. Yeah.
I think he said he wants to go back to Australia, didn't he? Try his hand back there again.
Because I just wondered, I thought 𝗲𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 might come in for him for Leeds, because he played under 𝗲𝗏𝗏𝗏 before he came to Rovers. I think he's been unlucky. Obviously, Jack's kind of taking a position that he might have expected to have taken. I'm a bit disappointed in Ollie Gildart. It's injuries. We've signed centres before who've had bad head injuries, haven't we? The kid Etherington,
Heffernan.
Yeah, Heffernan, sorry, yeah. And who was the other ex-Wigan player that we sent?
Yeah.
I know, but the jury's out. I don't know who I'd like to see at centre. It's whoever performs best in pre-season and gets the spot, and you've got to hold on to that spot. And, the beauty of it is, if you can't hold on to the spot, there's somebody there to take your place, as has been proved this season. The one thing, we've mentioned it in passing, we had a season free of injuries, basically. We had one or two, but we've had a season, and as did Castleford when they got to the grand final, and as did Huddersfield when they won the league leaders, as did Lee last year. Let's just hope we can keep injury free. But if we don't keep injury free, we have got people to step into other people's shoes, which we've never had before, and that will help us out next year. I did think at one point the Warrior Hargreaves thing. We've got a lot of props. Why did we need to sign him? I'm hoping that he makes me eat my words, but I'm fearful that he might spend some time on the sidelines, and perhaps we could have used some money for either for a centre come fullback in the broad, just a specialised centre come fullback, if there is such a thing. But like I say, we are where we are, and we have got players that can step in for injured players.
Yeah. And Steve, what do you mean? I can't wait to see Hargreaves walking down Preston Road with an Aldi carry bag on his way to training.
On his way. I'm told he's on his way. He's going to live next door to Sean Kenny-Dowell.
Is he?
So his kids are already got the places at the school in Willoughby. 𝗂𝗃𝗧𝗏. So he's all settled. He could be here next week, I think. Quite possible. Certainly within the next fortnight.
If he needs a lift, I'm quite happy to go to Manchester Airport and pick him up. The reason I like doing these podcasts live as well on YouTube is Michael Matthews has come up with the answer. The Wigan play you were talking about, Daryl Goulding.
That's him. Yeah.
That's it, yeah.
Thanks, Michael. Yeah.
So there's your answer straight away. So
good stuff.
Right, 2 hours. Frigging out. I didn't really realise it was going to be this long, but we've had so much to talk about, and it's been another fantastic season for Hull Kingston Rovers, for the Robin Pod, of course. It's been brilliant. A huge thank you to everyone, like I said at the start of the Robin Pod, who was tuned in, listened, watched, contributed, everyone who's been on the show. It's been brilliant. I'm so appreciative of your time, like we are now, 2 hours in, bloody hell. And the thank you to everyone who's tuned in and just contributed. It's been great. We'll be back for pre-season. I'm going to take a break from doing it. I'm going to go watch England play Samoa at Headingley. And obviously, unless something major happens, you will not hear from me on a podcast until pre-season starts. So fingers crossed, nothing major happens. James, Steve, a huge thank you for joining me tonight. It's been another great episode. Huge thank you to Budget Ties Auto Centre, who are sponsoring the Robin Pod, the only car specialist trusted by the players, club officials and supporters of Hull Kingston Rovers. The 2024, just remember, live, love, laugh and be happy.